Today's episode was originally broadcast in March 2026 as part of our Social Talent Live webinar, the AI Transformation Playbook for Talent Acquisition. If you missed this free event, be sure to sign up for the next one over on socialtalent.com/live. In this conversation, Mary Kay Baldino shares how Morningstar is approaching AI with intention. Instead of jumping straight to tools, they focused on process, capability building, and trust. From governance and ROI to practical use cases like AI note-taking and internal agents, there's plenty here to take back to your own team. Let's dive in.
I'm delighted to welcome Mary Kay Baldino, and she's joining us from Chicago. She's the head of global talent acquisition at Morningstar. If you're not in the US, not familiar with Morningstar, she'll share a little bit about who her organization is. Mary Kay is somebody I've got to know over the last few months, and I realized her team are doing absolutely amazing things around AI and innovation. Different things, but to share some of those examples, and I know you're hungry for examples, I'll welcome to the stage Mary Kay, and thank you so much for joining us this morning, your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Johnny. It's a pleasure to be here.
Not at all. Mary Kay, I thought what we'd start with, which is something I found really interesting, which again, it's a bit similar to what Kirsten comments upon. It wasn't about what AI can we use for you. You started your AI journey in a different way. You kind of had much more of a lean thinking approach and trying to, you had a problem to solve, and AI and RPA began to be the solution for some of those things, but they weren't the starting point. Walk me through that in terms of how you approach this and how you think about lean and removing waste from the process.
Sure. So I joined Morningstar, which is a diversified financial services company. We do a lot of different things to help with different investor kinds of questions. We have 7 different investment-related businesses, and we are a big global company. We have about 11,000 employees in around 30 countries across the world. And so my team works on a very wide variety of types of roles in a lot of different geographies. And when I joined Morningstar in January of last year, one of the first things I did was work with the global regional teams to do a really deep dive on the current state processes. I have a Lean Six Sigma background, so I tend to come at a lot of things through a process lens, and I wanted to really understand the details around where was all the waste in the process. What were we doing that was truly a business value add? What were things that we were doing that had to be done from a compliance perspective, even if they didn't add value? And what were all of the opportunities to reduce waste? We generated over 100 different examples of really significant waste in the process and started looking at, okay, so how do we prioritize those and how would we apply technology as well as underlying process change in order to do that. So we really started with process and then capability as well. Morningstar has an AI academy. It's had a really awesome impact. So part of what we're doing is also about skill building with our entire team. I mean, this is a company-wide initiative, but within my talent acquisition team, my goal is to have every single recruiter go through this AI academy. It's not just a prompt-a-thon, although those can be fun. It is actually very much skill building so that everyone has a solid grounding in how to use AI in a responsible way, right? People data is sensitive, um, and it's really been very impactful. People come out of that capable of building our own agents. They can all write great prompts, and they understand the Morningstar framework around responsible AI use.
So did you then, as an organization, just
Yeah.
really embrace AI? When you came in, had it already been embraced top down and these structures were in place in every department to encourage better AI usage, or was it uniquely TA?
No, I would say that I was coming in reasonably early in the people and culture journey around AI, and it was starting to get significant traction within all of our businesses. So while we've been careful about where we make investments and working closely with our compliance and data security teams, there's a clear roadmap around how we're embedding AI. We started with sort of core founding principles around this is how we intend to use and integrate AI tools into people and culture, how that interacts with our data, how we protect people's rights to privacy, how we protect our decision making and not end up with AI making decisions, but instead helping streamline operations.
And so when you started with those
Yeah,
100 plus examples of opportunities for waste, how did you narrow it down? And our audience are hungry for examples, so maybe you can share
sure.
with us maybe your favorite or most effective examples that you got into in that first year
Yeah,
that really
yeah.
really delivered on the business.
Well, I knew that tools weren't going to transform the TA function, that it would be about skills and governance. And so, after setting some of the foundation with identifying the waste, we started looking at some of the biggest opportunities to do one of two things. So I found this very similar to what Kirsten was saying earlier. Number one is this an efficiency opportunity? Can we do things faster and more efficiently? And efficient can also mean fewer errors, right?
Mm,
So, can we do it more efficiently, or does it actually elevate the work and drive actual value and additional actual value to the work? And so, an example of that where we saw both things coming in and getting a win is AI note taking. So, um, AI note taking can mean in a lot of different contexts in recruiting. It can mean AI note taking in kickoff meetings where we're gathering documentation around how should we be running this recruiting process? What are the real requirements of the jobs? How are we targeting our ideal candidates? How are we marketing this job? All of those things. And that can provide a really good foundation for things like writing a better job posting. Um, when we have those really clear notes, it's also helping us do a better job as recruiting consultants to really contract with that business leader around how the process should operate. So that's a great example. The other example where we ran some pilots last year was, and now we're broadening all of that out from just piloting to really enterprise solution, is AI note taking for interviews. And I'm really excited about that because it actually um, does both the efficiency gain of reducing the amount of time that people are spending manually taking notes, then cleaning them up and making them more easy to consume for the hiring manager. So recruiters are saving about 90 minutes per week is what we were measuring in our pilot, which is incredible. That 90 minutes can be reinvested in candidate care. It can be reinvested in pipelining and sourcing, so many other really value add activities, right? But we also found that when we use AI note taking and recruiters were just had to review and potentially edit a little bit, that the recruiter's confidence in creating a really great first impression with the candidate was elevated. And hiring managers were really, really positive about the quality of the notes they were getting. They didn't even know that it was being taken by AI, but they realized that they were getting really good information about the candidates. So when the recruiter's attention wasn't being split, they were able to add additional value to those conversations with candidates.
what was your process for kind of implementing some of these changes? I'm gathering sometimes you went out and procured software from
Mhm.
external vendors,
Yeah.
but other times you mentioned earlier that through the kind of AI academies you have internally, your team are
Yeah.
using how to build agents and write prompts. So walk me through that combo of how much
Sure.
of it was vendor driven, how much it was it your own recruiters building their own solutions.
It is a combination. I mean, there are definitely going out and procuring solutions that are where that's really necessary. You have a huge applicant tracking system database. You're not going to just layer, something like Copilot on top of it and build your own tools. So it depends on exactly what you're trying to accomplish and the scale at which you need to accomplish it. But you can also do a lot of things with just building your own agents internally. An example of that is, doing continuous sourcing, having an agent that's always on and doing sourcing through Boolean strings or all kinds of things. So that there are ways to take a singular task and use an agent that's built internally to help you with that task. And we have um, a PNC AI governance team in place. So we're looking at all kinds of ideas coming in, and that includes from my recruiting team and taking the best ideas and making sure that they're getting supported and rolled out to people. Those agents can then be shared across the team, and people can adopt and learn from each other's work, which is exciting.
One of our audience
Yeah,
jumped in with a question I had in mind.
sure.
Michael's asking, what LLM or LLMs or tools are you using to build these agents? What's been effective?
Well, so we are a Microsoft environment. We definitely, everybody has access to Copilot at Morningstar, but we also have commercial relationships with lots of other LLMs. So, Claude and ChatGPT are also available to people at Morningstar. We have a lot invested in making sure that people have access to the tools, and there's a request process and an approval process for requests to tools. And we also have great IT support when we need to do something that's more advanced. We can go and talk through that use case and work with more technical resources where we need to.
I love that. It's interesting. I come across companies who are locked down to one tool only or no tools. And then yesterday I was
Yeah,
talking to some of the team who work at LinkedIn, some of the recruiting team, and apparently in LinkedIn across the entire business, everybody has an allowance of $100 a month to spend on whatever they want AI tools. So that could be used for the one tool,
right.
but more tokens or an advanced plan to build apps, or it could be multiple LLMs. And I see this pattern. Kirsten mentioned as well that it's this kind of trust and support for innovation
Yeah,
that comes first, rather than a suspicion of all tools and a kind of blocking
yeah,
mentality. It sounds like Morningstar are very supportive in that way. Again, it has to be a process of approval, corporate approved
absolutely.
stuff, but it's not a slow process, I imagine.
It's not a slow process once because we had all of the alignment, including with our board of directors and the risk committee of our board to say, what do we need to make sure that we're doing this right? So having compliance and legal, IT, and our executive leadership team aligned on where are we going to make investments and how are we going to provide governance without choking innovation, without making it impossible for people to move quickly, was really, really important. And we have to always remember we're dealing with more sensitive data in people and culture. We're not, we're not dealing with just numbers or publicly available data. We're dealing with people's personal sensitive information. So we're going to always have an additional layer of caution around that. But I think we have been able to enable a lot for people.
You mentioned elevating the process earlier, and I know
Yes.
we talked previously about how some of these automations and improvements have helped elevate the recruiter to be more of a talent advisor. Talk to me about that. What is that in
Sure.
your view, and how has AI helped recruiters become better talent advisors?
Yeah. So I think a lot of companies have, competency models, skill models, capability models, whatever you want to call it. I mean, there's lots of different terminology that gets applied, right? One of the things that we've introduced at Morningstar is a recruiter capability model, and it's really built for the age of AI. So our capability model includes all of the sort of value add behaviors that we're really aiming for. What at each stage in the process, how are recruiters, when they're working at their highest and best use of their skills, how are they adding value to each stage in the process? And at each stage in the process, where can AI help support and assist them? Because it really is an assist. It is not taking away human judgment in any way. So, how do you integrate those AI capabilities? And so we've introduced all of this model. People have self-assessed against this model. Their managers have assessed them so that we can build this like year-long, 2-year-long probably roadmap for everyone around learning. And it includes things like our AI Academy for sure, but it's also about as we are freeing up time from an administrative burden, how are you able to then build your skills and elevate the work that you're doing so you're really a trusted advisor to the business and you're executing on your work in a way that builds that credibility and builds that trust.
So some
So,
questions around
so
the governance,
yeah,
transparency, and data piece. So
yeah.
first off, if you don't mind, Susan, and hey, Susan, in New York, wondering, how do you deal with storage?
Mm.
Where are the notes held? Are they automated into the ATS? Are they deleted after a while? And did you have issues over AI notes in the first place? Transcripts? Do you use summaries, transcripts? Walk me through some of the decisions there, some of the options you looked at.
Yeah, well, I would say that's a great question, and I would say that, when all of this started, we were seeing random people using AI note takers that weren't actually trained on how to watch an interview and take good notes. So Zoom meetings are wonderful, and I use Zoom AI note taking in a meeting context all the time, but they're trained to listen for an agenda and action items, etc. That's not what an interview is. So it does require that you look at tools that are specific to that use case. And as we did that, and started piloting things, what we were finding is that, it was really important to be able to run the pilot without having to first build an integration to our ATS, because we weren't sure how it was going to turn out, right? So we kept it smaller scale, and we had the vendor, fully vetted by data security, privacy, etc. Candidates are notified in advance before they even get to the interview that this AI note-taking tool is going to be utilized. They have the ability to opt out of that, and although most do not. And so as we were doing that, we were storing the notes on the vendor's site on their database. The best case scenario though is always integration. I'm always big on data consolidation. I always want everything integrated in one place, not only for ease of navigation, but reporting, analytics. I want to have our database, our data centralized. So that's the state that we're working on right now, is to get everything fully integrated.
I love you touched on things that are very familiar to me. We've been rolling out Cara, our interview intelligence platform, over the last few months. And again, you find that initial integration with the ATS is usually blocked by the business at the start. So you do have to store that data on a vendor's database and then integrate later and sync that data. You'll need different permission sets for different markets over how long you need to store
Yes,
that data for. It's not a one size fits all when you're, as you think you have 30 countries you're recruiting in or 30
right.
different locations. You got to consider that. You're right about the training. We trained Cara to only, for example, summarize notes relevant to what she should have been asked, not to summarize areas that are not relevant to the interview process, because again, you look at the compliance and transparency of things as well. So you've hit the nail on the head in terms of the expertise is required around a note-taking tool for a specific reason, not just general note-taking. But we know this idea of this kind of stealth AI usage where candidates or interviewers and hiring managers are off using all sorts of weird
All
tools they
sorts of
shouldn't be
things.
using.
Sure.
So it's better to provide them with the tool that's approved, that works well, with the business
Yes.
is really important. Uh, uh,
Yeah.
what have you learned? Because I know we're coming to a close
Yeah.
in a couple of minutes already, Mary Kay. We've flown through this.
Already, it goes
Um,
fast.
Well, you're flying. Just loads of data and loads of information. I really can't say thank you enough. But what lessons have you learned around perhaps things you did right or wrong, maybe along the way around compliance, adverse impact, legal challenges, permission? Without giving too much of the detail, maybe what have
Yeah.
you learned along the way that you can help our audience with, so that they don't have to learn the same lessons again?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing was really putting in the work to get down on paper and socialize what are the core principles for how we intend to use AI, and being able to explain to all stakeholders, including our legal, compliance, data privacy, IT partners, um, we intend for AI to assist and to automate work that is less value add. Um, but we don't intend to have AI that replaces human judgment. It won't make decisions. It's not capable of making decisions, and it's not capable of replacing recruiters. This is not this is not a play for us where we are trying to scale back our recruiting teams. We're trying to elevate their work, and so getting those core principles agreed upon was really, really important to helping everything move faster because it helps us build trust and have everybody on the same page when we go to evaluate a specific use case, a specific tool, etc. So I think that is worth investing the time and the energy into, and I think it helped clarify the thinking around the entire PNC leadership team about what we should be investing in and what could maybe wait, right? You don't do everything at once. You're not going to, automate your end-to-end process using AI tomorrow. So where do you start and where's the most value? The other thing is really looking at where are you trying to get a return on investment? How are you going to measure the return on investment? Big believer in, good TA leaders are essentially entrepreneurial and know how to build a business case for any investments and know how to measure and get a return on investment in those business cases. So, there's things that we've said no to because it's too niche, it's too small scale, and it's not going to be possible to get a return on investment. And so sometimes it's like, well, no, we're not going to go buy that, that tool. What are smaller scale things that we could experiment with and pilot and see if we could gather the data that would be needed to consider an investment in the future?
Okay, I could keep going for 30 more minutes. I think our audience will keep going, ask you questions as well. But I know you got to get back to work. I can't thank you enough for joining us, for sharing that. It's been so practical. So many tips, so many insights. I kind of almost hear people scribbling in the modern world or typing their notes as you're
Yeah.
sharing there, Mary Kay. No doubt you're going to get tons of LinkedIn messages after this as well. Thank you so much for joining us, for sharing that. I think you've done an amazing job with the team in such a short period of time as well. I hope your story and Kirsten's story can inspire some of the folks listening here, particularly the leaders, that this can be done, that there are hurdles, there are compliance risks we have to be aware of. There are behavioral challenges as well. There's a lot of tech to choose from. But as you said, with the right principles upon which, how are we approaching this? What are our guiding principles? What are the big problems to solve? With that kind of an approach, this can really do wonders. And for those who are maybe a bit far behind, remember there are teams like Mary Kay's team and Kirsten's team who are going after your talent and winning because they're using these tools better. So it is absolutely time to catch up. Mary Kay, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a real
Thank you.
pleasure.